You are listening to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, also known as Lauren Fitz. I'm a medical doctor, a fitness instructor, an entrepreneur, a health and fitness coach, but most importantly, I am a lover of life. And here on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, I intend to give you a ton of great information and knowledge that will serve as potential power so that you can live a life by design and make it more fits and healthy. And don't forget to listen to the disclaimer at the end. I'm not your doctor, yo. All right, enjoy the episode. Much love. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, and I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Cinthanie from Cinthanie.com.
Hey, girl. Hey.
I told her, I'm like, girl, you're looking like modelish today. I mean, for real.
I'm better. I have like 10 pounds of makeup on.
The one day a week that we put makeup on, right?
Seriously. No, I was just talking about it on my Snapchat. I was like, I'm pretty sure I wear enough makeup on Fridays to make up for the makeup that I don't wear on all the other days of the week.
So true. So true.
Girl, it better look good.
Right? Well, we want to welcome everyone to this episode of the Fitz and Healthy Show, where we are going to talk about everything thyroid. And like Cinthanie said, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about on this broadcast, she said, this is a hot topic. And I just want to give the listeners a heads up that this could potentially turn into a two-part topic because there is so much to cover about the thyroid. And one, a lot of you guys, if you're new to the podcast, you might be wondering, okay, what is Cinthany's role? Because you're a doctor, Lauren, but Cinthany's role is to be the voice for all of the laymen, all of the people that don't have a medical degree or any kind of letters after their name that give them expertise in something that has to do with the body. And so today we are going to talk about the thyroid gland and thyroid hormone and all of the things that you guys have been asking for, because the main reason that we're doing this episode today, we were actually going to talk about something different. But the main reason that we're doing it today is that I did on my Facebook page, I did a Lauren Live, which that's just what I call when I go live on Facebook. It's not an official show, y'all. But I did a Lauren Live about Mountain Dew and the connection to thyroid cancer. And so that got a little bit of talk about thyroid disease and the thyroid hormone. And man, that video was shared quite a bit. And I had a lot of people asking me, different thyroid directed questions. So
ask and ye shall receive.
Exactly. Now, did you watch that Lauren Live?
I didn't get a chance to. No.
Okay.
But it's funny because I had just listened to the Model Health Show's episode about it that we were mentioned on, by the way.
What?
Holla.
Holla. No, for real, for those people that don't follow us on Snapchat or online, because our Facebook fans and Snapchat people already, they got to hear our excitement. But for those of you that don't know, I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. And one of my top 3 favorite podcasts is one called The Model Health Show by Sean Stevenson and his co-host Jade. And in fact, their interaction is what I envision for you and me. Obviously, we're not male, female, we're both female, but they both give 2 different perspectives. And I loved the chemistry between them. Not loved. I still listen to them. Yeah. But for those of you listening that are like, why are you telling me this? Well, let me just tell you. So I listen to audiobooks, podcasts, and whatever kind of personal development to make me smarter and to add to, my bank of knowledge every morning. And so I had maybe rolled out of bed maybe 20 minutes before. I'm making my coffee. I put on my phone. I picked which podcast episode I want to listen to. And I was like, oh, the Model Health Show has a new one. And it's about thyroid. Awesome. Now I will tell you, I must confess, I usually fast forward through the first 8 to 10 minutes. I know it's terrible because I don't want to hear all the sponsors. I mean, like, I recognize the need for sponsors, and you know, that's, most people don't realize that if you have a podcast, you're not getting paid for it. And so sponsorship is a way to make money. I totally get it, but I usually fast forward through that and the review of the day. And so Jade, that's always her part of to pick an iTunes review of the week, right? Mm-hmm. So I just happened that day. I don't remember the last time I listened to the first 10 minutes of the Model Health Show. And I just happened to be listening to it. And the review of the week, as you know, started off with Shazam.
I love that you can quote it.
Oh, heck yeah. Jade is reading it and she goes, Shazam, my mentor, who is the host of the upcoming Fitz and Healthy podcast, suggested your podcast, and I am hooked. And I mean, like, literally my eyes were like, did I just hear our podcast that's 17 days old mentioned on the Model Health Show? Now, will anyone come look us up? I don't know, but that's still pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because before you and I even met or anything, the Model Health Show was the first podcast that I listened to had anything to do with like health and fitness.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny that you and I are both lovers of the Model Health Show outside of even meeting each other. So it's like, it's a common place for us that we're both like, what? Like totally fangirling.
Wasn't that one of the things when we met each other on the cruise that we went on in September? Wasn't that one of the first things that we were like, what? You listen to this too?
I think
you and Amanda Ward. Amanda Ward. Because we love ourselves some Sean Stevenson. His voice is just so sexy.
Yeah.
But he is happily married with a beautiful wife and kids. But I would definitely love to meet him one day, him and Jade, and just, you know, shout out to that show. It's, you know, and that's, you know, like I said on my, I don't know, Snap or Facebook, I'm like, you know, the hashtag goals of, I want to be considered the female Sean Stevenson. I want people to come to this podcast with the same thirst for knowledge that people do that come to his podcast. So
yeah, for sure. So speaking of review of the week,
great,
we have one.
Yes. and you guys, for real, literally last week, it was last week that I told you that I wanted to start doing that, right? Because in the first, we're almost at 3 weeks. We launched May 1st, and today is the 19th. So we're at like 128 reviews.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I actually went to Sean Stevenson's to leave a review just yesterday, just to be like, hey. And he has like 1,000 something. So we're already past 1/10 of the amount of reviews, and his show has been on for a long time, and it's very well respected. So like that just gives people like an idea how important the fact is that we haven't even been launched a month and we already have 127, 128 reviews. So
cool.
So I had just asked you last week to pick a review of the week, right?
Yeah.
So tell us the review that you picked. And I don't know which one it is. So.
You don't, but it's a really, really good one. Dang it, I just clicked out of it. Okay, I found it again. Okay, so it says, this is from Scuba Girl. It says, jaw-dropping information from a real MD. These podcasts have seriously opened my eyes to being a healthier me. So much information is packed into these podcasts. Lauren is a funny, smart, say it like it is person. You just feel like she gives her life and soul into what she does. She has passion and grit, like go get it done grit. Won't miss an episode. Much love from MN.
Oh,
isn't that so awesome?
I totally have chills. I don't know if you can see the chills. I totally have chills.
So awesome.
That's awesome. I thank you for that amazing review. We do read them all, and we appreciate, because it does, now that I've done a review on Sean Stevenson's show. Actually, that and Shalene Johnson's podcast are the only ones that I've ever left a review. I do know that it takes some extra time, and so we appreciate you guys taking the time to go write a review and hopefully leave us 5-star review. So that being said, let's get to the point of today's episode, the thyroid. And so actually, I'm going to start off by asking you, the non-medical person, what is your thought when someone says, I think I'm having an issue with thyroid? Where does your brain go?
Well, I've done a little bit more research than the common person. So
Yeah.
to me, I think of gut health.
Okay.
That's what comes to me, to my mind, because I know that your gut is essentially like your second brain of your body. And from what I have heard, the what's the word I'm looking for? The cells that are in your gut are very similar to the cells of your thyroid. And so because of that, gut health is very, very, very important for your thyroid. That's at least that's what I know.
Okay. All right. You're halfway there, and we'll talk about all those kind of details, and hence that's the reason. I think the common layperson that doesn't know as much as you do about nutrition, the body, health, and whatnot, most people would think about metabolism. You know, that when they are having a hard time losing weight, the first thing they think about is, I want to get my thyroid checked.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to start, because a majority of people, when it comes to thyroid disease, have an underworking thyroid. If they have thyroid disease versus overactive thyroid. And more times than not, the first thing that brings them to ask their general practitioner, their doctor, to check it is, I can't lose weight, or I've gained all this weight and I don't know why, because I haven't changed anything in my diet, and I exercise and I eat healthy, quote unquote healthy, and but I'm still having weight gain. And so they automatically think that it must be my thyroid. And what often happens is that they will go to a general Western medicine doctor, and they will get a typical thyroid panel. And I mean, I can't tell you how many thyroid panels I ordered for past patients. And truly, it's not a function of these doctors are intentionally not testing everything and looking for everything, but we're just not taught in med school certain things that have to do with the way in which you can heal the body naturally.
Yeah.
So a typical doctor will get a panel that some of the main things they look at is TSH, free T4, and T3. And you can see a little bit of what is going on in a patient with that, but there's so much more that goes on. So let's rewind back to the thyroid. So what is the thyroid? So the thyroid is this gland in your neck that sits, like if you touch your Adam's apple, it's right around that. Yep. And exactly, just right there. And this gland is essential for life. So what that means is, if you, for whatever reason, we'll talk about the many different reasons why that gland might need to go bye-bye. You can't live without the hormone that it creates, the thyroid hormone. Okay. The thyroid hormone, and anyone who's listened to any Lauren Lives or any of my past podcasts will definitely, you'll come to hear a theme that hormones react, and they have a fine dance, a fine balance. So just because your thyroid is out doesn't mean that's your only hormone imbalance. And oftentimes a thyroid hormone imbalance is equal to every other hormone is out of balance. Okay. So you have this hormone, you have this gland in your neck, and it creates a hormone that is essential for life. So in an ideal body that is not exposed to toxins, that's getting all of the nutrition that the human body was meant to have, that is getting proper sleep, that is not exposed to stress on a regular basis, who has a healthy gut, healthy adrenal glands, and a healthy liver. The thyroid is in this perfect balance, and it's in this axial of it's controlled by the brain, and then the brain sends signals to the thyroid, and then the thyroid sends that hormone out to where it's supposed to go. And then there's this thing called a negative feedback loop. Okay. And this is a concept that you learn early in med school, that essentially A leads to B, leads to C. And then if C is enough, it will feed back and talk to A so that it will release more to B, to C. And it's a fine balance that everything is supposed to happen perfectly, as far as, and when everything is, when the body is in that ideal state, it does. We don't need medication. We don't need any of that kind of stuff. But the fact is that our day and age that we live in, I mean, we're exposed to endocrine disruptors like personal care products, plastics, soaps, toothpaste, the fluoride in our water, the bromide that's in all of these brominated vegetable oils, mercury in our fillings, mercury in fish, like all of these things are endocrine disruptors that will alter that perfect balance. That's just one of the many things that can alter the thyroid. And so okay, we acknowledge that we're not in a perfect balanced state. And so I can already hear some of the listeners be like, whoa, Lauren, so what am I supposed to do? All of these things, or, where do you start? Well, first thing is knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You got to be aware that your symptoms may be red flags to a problem with that thyroid hormone balance. Okay. And so let me just ask you, because obviously, a little bit more than the average person. So if I say low thyroid or hypothyroid, what kind of symptoms come to your mind? Besides obviously low metabolism.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, hypo just to me, just sounds like it's extremely just out of control.
Right. Okay, so here's the deal. So hyper versus hypo. So hyper means overactive. Hypo means underactive. And so if you have hypothyroidism, your thyroid is not acting enough. It's not giving enough hormone that's active in the body. Hyperthyroidism means it's overreactive and it's producing too much hormone.
Okay.
And this hormone is quite unique in the fact that there are certain symptoms that if it produces too much or if it produces too little, there are definitely a whole host of symptoms. And so let's just start with let's start with the least common, the hyperthyroidism.
Okay.
So hyperthyroidism often is referred to as Graves'. That's one of the conditions. It's autoimmune in nature, which means that your body is attacking the thyroid gland and making it where it produces too much hormone. Okay. So hyperthyroidism has symptoms of high metabolism. So you have a person that, all of a sudden in the last few months or whatever, loses weight and it hasn't tried to. And of course, most of us would be like, hell yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Right?
I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel awesome.
Exactly. But the fact is that if you are losing weight unintentionally, the first two things that come to mind as a physician are an undiagnosed cancer and an overactive thyroid gland, because the human body just doesn't randomly lose weight. And so when you have, the first chief complaint of unintentional weight loss, honestly, cancer is the first thing that comes to my mind. Yeah. 100%. Because cancer is a hypermetabolic state. And so just as the thyroid gland is, the thyroid hormone is basically our hormone of metabolism. And so when you are producing too much thyroid hormone, you go into a hypermetabolic state. So all of a sudden your metabolism is revved up and you're losing weight, you're burning energy faster than you should. Okay. So along with unintentional weight loss, you have symptoms like always feeling hot and sweaty. Like you're an internal furnace and you can't cool down. It doesn't matter how cold you hit, put the AC, like you are just constantly hot, right? You can have like excessive energy, like anxiety and constantly feeling the need to move. Like you're just like, almost like you're on drugs, but not on drugs, right? And in fact, people that take thyroid hormone for the opposite, the hypothyroidism, if they are overdosed by their physician, they can actually have symptoms of hyperthyroidism.
How crazy.
So these are all, it's this perfect fine balance.
Sounds very fickle.
It is. It is. And the human body was created perfectly, but we have so many ways that we jack with that hormone, the perfect body balance.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware, then you're just going to continue getting sicker and sicker, and your thyroid is going to basically just cycle out of control, and it's going to end up not good for you. Another weird symptom and this usually is seen later in you had to have other symptoms before this happens, but it's called exophthalmos, where it literally looks like your eyes are bugging out of your head. That's one of the symptoms of Graves' disease. I'm not even kidding. Like, go Google that. Go under Google Images, and you can see what literally, like, it's crazy, right? So these are just some of the symptoms of Graves' hyperthyroidism can have. There are certain things that can rev up your release of thyroid hormone, but Graves' is the most common. Like I said, it's considered an autoimmune disorder, and what it is like you said, the leaky gut health is typically, if we can fix the gut, we can fix a lot of autoimmune cases. And so more times than not, you'll find a patient that has, a leaky gut and is leading to the production of these proteins that essentially look like TSH. Now, what TSH is, it's called thyroid stimulating hormone. Now, remember that axis that I talked about, right? The A to B to C, right? So A is basically your gland in your brain that's deep in the stems of your brain, your brain that produces thyroid stimulating hormone. And the amount that it produces and sends to your thyroid gland, point B, has everything to do with that feedback loop, that negative feedback loop, and other hormones that decipher how much thyroid you need, right? So hormones like cortisol from your adrenal glands and insulin and all of these other hormones that control your thyroid hormone. And ultimately your thyroid hormone is in my opinion, it's the master hormone that literally, if that's out of whack, it will cause everything else to be out of whack.
It sounds like it.
It's well, and you, like I said, you can't live without thyroid hormone. So for instance, I actually have a friend who she took my class when I lived in Oklahoma City. And she was coming to me and she's like, I'm having all of these symptoms. And I mean, sure enough, it was like classic textbook for overactive thyroid. And so sure enough, she was tested. Her lab panels were it's Graves. And so more times than not, traditional Western medicine doctors will try and treat you with either drugs or this is going to sound terrible, but basically you irradiate the thyroid gland. And if I were someone with thyroid issues, I would try my best to do every single natural technique to get my thyroid back under control under normal circumstances. And this is where I'm different than, well, the way I view things is different than most Western medicine doctors. And for people that are just listening for the first time, I do have my medical degree. I got it in 2005. So I'm a traditional MD, Western medicine, but there are a lot of us that are Eastern minded, if you will. And functional medicine doctors are probably the best example. And so, I'll have someone that's like, well, where do I find it? Because I mean, I don't practice medicine anymore. I gave up medicine to fully do health and fitness for my main career. And I was an anesthesiologist, so I wouldn't see you anyway. But where do I find a doctor that doesn't want to just immediately put me on a drug that is, toxic to my thyroid, that's going to put you into a hypothyroid state? And this is a website that we'll put in the show notes, but it's one that we've mentioned quite often, and we need to find some more good resources. But I know functionalmedicine.org is a great starting place for your search and finding a functional medicine doctor. Obviously, if you're, like me in California, there's probably functional medicine doctors everywhere. But if you're in the middle of, the Midwest, where, they're not quite as open-minded, and not everyone. I mean, I'm Texas isn't Midwest, but I lived in Oklahoma. It's considered Midwest. And there were some like-minded people, but for the most part, a majority of people, like my dad, for instance. I love my dad. He's
Your
special.
dad is awesome.
He is special. And so this is probably more information that people want to know. But so I have a yoga swing. And a yoga swing is, so I have in my doorway, I have a pull-up bar, and then the yoga swing is over it. And the reason I have it is because I like to invert every day. Mm-hmm. Now, inversion is something that I used to think was woo-woo, and meaning like woo-woo science, like whatever. Yeah. And I've said this in past podcasts that, I used to think that it was all quackery, the acupressure or acupuncture and chiropractor. I just thought it was all crap because I thought I knew everything because I was taught traditional Western medicine. Right. Yeah. But I've obviously since changed a lot of my ways of thinking, and inversion is something that I try and do. I literally get in my yoga swing every morning after I've spent about 10 minutes in meditation, and I hang upside down for 2 or 3 minutes. And I've read a lot of great articles about it. But when my dad, they were here last weekend for Mother's Day. And when my dad asked what that was for, he rolled his eyes. He was like, whatever. That's so, yeah. Okay. You believe that stuff? I'm like, yeah, I actually do now. And so the point of that long story is that my dad he represents the stereotype that is closed-minded to a lot of natural healing techniques.
Sure.
So, okay. So getting back to hyperthyroidism. So you have a couple of options. If you want to go the Western medicine route, there is a drug called PTU. That's usually the first drug of choice that they give you, which essentially works to stop the consistent TSH, so thyroid stimulating hormone, basically making that puzzle piece connection with the thyroid, which sends that signal for the thyroid to produce, B to C, the thyroid hormone that goes to the rest of the body and acts where it's supposed to, right?
Got it.
Now, where is C? So the thyroid hormone acts in cells of the body, and this is where you have to. Well, here, we'll get to that in a little bit. There's just so much. And this is for listeners. That's why we were going to record 2 different podcasts. And in preparation for today's podcast, I'm like, I don't know if I can get all of this in an hour because there's so much to talk about. So, so long story short, my friend, they did the traditional route, give her medicine. It didn't work. They basically irradiated her thyroid gland, and she ended up opting to have a total thyroidectomy. So went in for surgery, and usually either a general surgeon or an ear, nose, and throat surgeon will go in. It's a fairly uncomplicated procedure, especially if you have a patient that's of normal weight. But it's a very highly there's a lot of risks that come along with that surgery if you're dealing with a morbidly obese patient. And as we all know, obesity and morbid obesity, the rates get higher and higher every year. And and if you can imagine, you've got this thyroid gland that sits in front of your airway, and there's only so much space in your neck, right? And so if you have like a post-surgical bleed, that blood, there's only so much space that can go. And so what will happen, like a risk that we worry about is a post-op hematoma that grows so much that it blocks your airway and a patient can die. I mean, so people have to understand not just there's big risks that come along with prescription medicine and with surgery. And and you have to take that into mind, that I know that it's very tempting to automatically want to go to I want a prescription, but I beg of people to open their minds up and try their hardest to find a functional medicine doctor that will work with you to find natural ways to get your hormone back to euthyroid state. So euthyroid is spelled EU thyroid, which means normal, not too high, not too low. So everyone's going to essentially learn medical jargon listening to this. You got hypothyroid. I
expect to be half doctor
for real
this time next year. So,
I mean, med school's 4 years, right? So maybe year 4 of the Fitz and Healthy
I'll be
podcast.
A 4th doctor by next year this time.
I love it. Awesome. Okay. So let's talk about the one that most people know about and have heard about. And it's the one that deals with hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have heard it referred to as Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people that have never heard that think that it's some cool like sushi name, right?
Yeah.
It's not. That's just that. I think that's the name of the doctor who
discovered it.
Yeah. There are a few different hypothyroidism states, but Hashimoto's autoimmune thyroiditis is the most common one.
Yeah.
And it's autoimmune in nature. So symptoms besides slow down metabolism, do you know any of them off the top of your head?
Aren't you always cold?
There, good. So that's the official terminology is called cold intolerance. And I don't think I said that for Graves. It's heat intolerance, but that's what it means. So yes.
So it's like is it the exact opposite then? The symptoms are, so they're probably cold, their eyes sink into their head. Okay, like
you're on the eyes, aren't you?
I'm like, this is good as I can't, never mind. I can't say it because it'll sound so mean. I can't.
Oh yeah. Don't be mean. Don't be mean.
No, the first thing that popped into my mind when you said that was, I don't know.
Don't say names because you never know.
No, it's not a name. Okay. No, I have to tell you now. I thought of a Chihuahua because Chihuahuas have like bug eyes. And I don't want people to think I'm a jerk for thinking that, but that's just the first
You guys, for the record, both Cinthanie and I are dog lovers. But yeah, I totally agree. That's a really actually a great...
I didn't want to be rude though and compare it to a dog, but...
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyways, just gonna throw my shovel away. Stop digging the hole that I'm in. Continue.
Okay, so we have slowed metabolism, cold intolerance, unintentional weight gain, the feeling of always being tired, just slow and sluggish, brain fog.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I'm not sure if I said, but I know I said anxiety, but for hyperthyroidism, but like symptoms of ADD, like overly active thyroid.
Yeah.
Let's see, hair loss.
Really?
Brittle nails and hair. Your skin can become this like really dry. It's just everything looks like it's not functioning the way it's supposed to when you're hypothyroidism.
Sure.
But like I said, typically most people the weight loss or the lack of being able to lose weight and unintentional weight gain is typically the symptom that gets them to there. But that's the thing with hypothyroidism, you've got this, not every person has all of the symptoms. So you can have someone that literally just has that one unspecific diagnosis of, doc, I don't feel well. I don't feel like myself. I feel like I have no energy. And then they're negative for all the other symptoms. So then the doc might not even check a thyroid panel.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things just to be aware of that if you are experiencing any of these things that you need to think, okay, maybe I do need to consider my thyroid.
Which is so good to hear because I think that a lot of people experience these things day to day and just think that that's the way that they function. They don't realize that it may be due to something.
Yes.
So
yes. No, in fact, there are so many people, when I'm taking on a new client for coaching or whatnot, or someone just asked me about, nutrition, I let them know, especially after hearing what their typical, like what they think eating healthy is. Like, okay, imagine how you feel on your best day, like you're feeling great. Then multiply that by 100 because you have no idea what it really feels like to feel good and to have clear mind, no brain fog, have energy, have a stabilized mood. I mean, when we're our hormones are out of whack, our mood is definitely out of whack.
Yeah.
For sure. And so much of it is related to our nutrition, right?
Mm.
So hypothyroidism is the most common, and also it's most common in females versus males. So of course it can happen to males, but statistically speaking, I think we females are like 7 to 8 times more likely to have thyroid disease than our counterparts.
Wow.
It also increases as we get older. So if you look at a pie chart, females in their teens and 20s, it's pretty low. And then once it's 30s, it gets higher. At 40s and 50s, it's highest. And 60s and 70s is kind of still up there. It doesn't go down, but it doesn't continue to increase exponentially. So age and our sex have a lot to do with it. Also family history. So if you
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah. And like for me, all the females in my family on my mom's side have well, not all. My mom doesn't. But I think both of her sisters do. I think my grandmother does. I think my great grandmother did. So definitely heavy in the genetics, but that doesn't mean, and in fact, someone needs to write this down, whether you or Robert, but we need
I don't have a pen and paper.
Okay. we need to do an episode just explaining what epigenetics is.
Ooh, yes.
And all of the ways in which it can affect your life. But epigenetics, the quick and skinny of epigenetics is you, Lauren Fitzgerald, are given a set of genes, right? And your genes are almost identical to yours, Cinthanie, or yours, Robert, except for a few minor little changes. And that's due to, our genetic variabilities from our mom and dad, right? And so a lot, not just, what we look like, but oftentimes our disease processes are from our genetics. And just because the females in my mom's family all have not all, but almost all have thyroid disease, doesn't mean that I'm going to be doomed to that. And this theory, more times than not, is applied to, well, my mom is overweight, my dad is overweight, I'm doomed to be overweight. And that's one of the main reasons I would like to do a podcast on epigenetics, because that doesn't mean that you are doomed to being overweight just because both your parents are. So much of it's nature versus nurture. And
that's a good way to put it.
for sure. And nurture has everything to do, not just food and liquid that you drink, but your environment, the toxins that you're exposed to, your stress level. And we're talking both good and bad stresses. I mean, a bad stress is constantly being on call for the, OB anesthesia and worrying that my pager is about to go off for, an abruption that I've got to be in the OR like 2 minutes ago. That is really negative stress versus the stress of like Kelsey, and she's pregnant. Like that's a good stress, but it's still a stress on the body. Right. And so all of these things can trigger that. And I don't know why, but I like to use a light switch. So the light switch is off until you have whatever that trigger is that turns it on. And now all of a sudden you start having symptoms. And the thing with thyroid disease is that the symptoms are not immediate. They're very slow to approach. So they're very easily overlooked. And truly the different stages of thyroid disease literally develop over, 10, 15 years. We're not talking days, we're talking years. Right. So out of all of those stresses, what would be your guess that is the number one stressor that turns on the epigenetics for thyroid disease?
I don't know.
So it's actually stress. It's not, so a lot of people think that it is diet. And I definitely, if I have someone that comes to me and is like, I'm on thyroid medicine and I want to try and get off of it, one of the first things that I will ask about is their nutrition. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But the thing that is overlooked is, well, what stress is happening in your life, So that can look like a ton of things. I mean,
Yeah.
my poor shift workers that, if you aren't getting sleep on the natural daily circadian rhythms,
Yeah.
that's a stress to your body.
Mm.
And I was actually just talking to a chick that she was a nurse that I used to work with back during residency, talking to her yesterday, and her husband's an anesthesiologist as well. She's a client of mine, and we were talking, and I told her it took almost a year after I left medicine to get my sleep schedule back to normal, because that's
Wow.
how long it took my hormones to get back balanced.
Yeah.
Because there's something to be said about your adrenal glands are constantly being, I mean, it's literally, the feeling when
Yeah.
you've been scared and all of a sudden your pulse goes up and
Yeah.
you start sweating. Like every time, as a physician that is on call for anything traumatic, every
Yeah.
time my pager or my cell phone would go off in the middle of the night, that would be my stress response. And so you
Yeah.
can imagine that's not natural. And when stuff that's not natural to the body happens, you have an unnatural reaction. So sleep is one of the ways that we can fix the stress.
Yeah.
Another way is, okay, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but there are a lot of people in stressful relationships.
Mm.
And
say it ain't so.
I know. And, I realize it's easier said than done, but, and I'm not just talking about significant other. I mean, a lot of people have stressful relationships with their parents, with their kids,
with their boss,
with their, but not me, because I'm a good boss, right? Robert's in our ears saying, sorry, what'd you say?
If you don't know who we're referring to when we say Robert, he's our podcast producer.
Oh, that's a good point.
He's always sitting in when we're recording. So
exactly.
Yeah.
He's the voice in our ears, but not yours.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there are a lot of toxic relationships that cause your body to essentially have the same reaction as you would a human being, approached by a big bear in the wild 1,000 years ago. I mean, it could happen now too, but that was originally how our fight or flight response was explained.
Yeah.
That, for years we've been, hunters and gatherers, and the whole point of your fight or flight system is to save your life, because if
it's
you
just
need
that
to,
instinct.
Exactly. And that's the same system that, if you hear about someone getting stuck under a car and someone has like Superman human strength and lifts a car up, like that's adrenaline going through that person's body, and it's the fighter. So the sympathetic nervous system is the technical terms. So that being said, other stressors that can turn it on are stressors from your environment.
Yeah.
Are there any particular environmental stressors that you can think of that would,
for
Miss Layman, or laywoman?
For me, if my house isn't clean, that's like a huge stress for me. Like,
there you go.
I don't know if that relates, but like if there's laundry on my couch, like that, it's such a huge stress to me. And like, I don't sleep as good as I do if my house is clean. Like, I don't work as well if my house isn't clean. That's like a big environmental thing for me.
Girl, you cannot be my roommate. I'm just saying. No,
I didn't say that I was clean. I just said that it bugs me.
Oh, I'm the world's worst at putting clean clothes in my extra bedroom.
I hate laundry.
I do too.
Laundry.
I do too, for sure. Okay, so I'm talking about like environmental stressors, if you will.
Okay.
So two of the biggest things, and this is actually if I have a male who comes to me and I think that they possibly might have an underactive thyroid, two of the first, and this could be for both female and male, but because it's less common for men to have hypothyroidism, I would think of this quicker than when a female, but exposure to mold or Lyme disease. So those are two big stressors on the system that can be the triggers that can trigger you going into hypothyroidism.
Yeah.
So toxin, toxic mold and Lyme disease. And of course, those of you, do you know what Lyme disease is?
Mm-mm.
So
I mean,
Lyme
I've
disease.
heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what it was.
Okay, it's a debilitating state that it's in certain regions of the country. It's more common. It almost every time that you hear of someone getting Lyme disease, it's by someone who has a tick bite. Is that sounding familiar a little bit more?
Yeah.
And it's more common in people that live in the Northeast. So for instance, another podcaster that I love to listen to that he lives in Austin now, but he's from the Northeast. And I think like a lot of his family members have had Lyme disease. He's from Pennsylvania. Abel James, the fat burning man. He was on that reality show a couple of Januaries ago. My trainer is better than yours, or my diet is better than yours. Cause he's, he believes the same way that we do, that healthy fat, whatnot. But anyway, Tim Ferriss is another person that has history of Lyme disease, and Lyme disease is something that can be easily overlooked and underdiagnosed and can affect you for years. And that is, I mean, you could just feel like crap. You have no energy. You've got brain fog. You feel like you're not human.
Yeah.
And that's something that, if there's a listener out there that, you've been camping, and not even, I mean, my house in Oklahoma was next to woods, a wooded area. And there was one time I was sitting by my pool and literally I found a tick on me. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But, luckily I don't think that, because the area of the country, it's not common, but it's still possible.
Yeah.
So other things that can trigger hypothyroidism that are toxins from the environment. I did mention personal care products.
BPA.
Yeah. Well, and BPA. So BPA is found in plastics.
Yeah.
Usually BPA isn't found in personal care products. There's a ton of different ingredients that are in personal care products. And I'm guessing, because not all of my makeup is natural, and I guess yours isn't either. And this is one of those things that I've been really thinking about. Like, I need to that's just a lot of money.
It's just, cosmetics are already expensive.
I know.
But how can I sit here and say that it's not worth the investment? That's not practicing what I preach.
Exactly.
Doesn't make it any easier, but
even though I just wear makeup once a week, that makeup,
I do have
face.
10 pounds of it on that one day though. So
I can't say I have 10 pounds. It took me about.
I just feel like I have 10 pounds because I don't wear a lot of makeup during the week. So when I do put it on, I feel like I have like a mask on.
Exactly. Another thing that a lot of people don't realize is a thyroid suppressor is fluoride. And fluoride, this is one of the reasons, which we'll do a total episode on, just water. And a lot of people that follow me on Snapchat I'll always show me refilling my bottles. I get my water refilled at Whole Foods, but there's other places. Sprouts has a water place. It's just Whole Foods happens to be closest to me. But I get basically the reverse osmosis. And that way I know that there is no hormones in my water. There's no fluoride in my water. There's no chlorine in my water. And all of those things disrupt your gut, for one. Well, the chlorine does and the fluoride, but a lot of people don't realize that just the tap water, minuscule amounts of like birth control pills and pharmaceuticals can be found. It's crazy, right?
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
I always, when I go to restaurants, I will always either bring my water bottle, or I will buy like San Pellegrino or one of the water companies that I know has. So I don't drink. I used to be all about I'm not going to pay for, my drink, water, but I do now, because I understand the importance of it. And so fluoride is put into our water. They say because the government wants to help prevent cavities. And this is something that it's more conspiracy theory, but I've heard this from a couple of different resources. But the conspiracy is that the government put it in there so that it could justify all of the high sugar that from big food companies are doing to our teeth, because sugar definitely leads to cavities. And, and that's one interesting thing. When I started to change my nutrition, about 2 or 3 years ago, however long it was, because I would go see the dental hygienist every 6 months just to get my teeth cleaned. And so I always have the same chick, shout out to Christy if she's listening. And she was like, there's not as much plaque. What are you doing differently? And it was a change of diet. It was like, interesting. But actually all of the studies show that there is not any decrease in cavities in people that drink fluorinated water versus not. So, and fluoride basically suppresses your thyroid and can lead to hypothyroidism. So it's
it's so interesting, because I'm like, this is shooting me back to when I was a little kid in elementary school. They would come to each classroom with this cart with little tiny cups of fluoride. And if you were on the list, your mom put you on the list, you had to go out and swish fluoride for 30 seconds. And that's so interesting to me now that they were so adamant about making sure that you did the fluoride swish, but that it's
crazy.
Yeah. It's just
not good for you.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
It's actually banned in most European countries and other countries throughout the world.
A lot of the stuff that we use here is banned everywhere else.
Doesn't it just make you angry?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I talked about in my Lauren Live. The BDO, the brominated vegetable oils that are found in sodas, specifically Mountain Dew, but it's a lot of other sodas, a lot of citrus drinks, Gatorades, a lot of products have this brominated vegetable oil, and that stuff is banned in Europe, Japan, and other major civilized countries, if you will. But not here. Our government, and it has everything to do with lobbyists and we know I don't do politics.
Yeah, nope. This is not a politics podcast.
Dude, earlier this week, Robert sent me a text message that I don't even remember what it had to do with politics, but I'm like, dude, I don't give a crap.
I don't speak that language.
Yes.
I
don't watch the news. Watching the news and listening to news does not change my day-to-day life. It causes stress.
Yeah.
So if the world is coming to an end, I'm going to find out anyway.
Right. Yes.
And me listening to the news for 30 minutes to an hour every day. Life is too short. I don't want to waste my time because it's not going to change my life at all.
Yeah.
I've got positive changes to make on this earth, and me wasting time listening to all of that political crap.
It's just unnecessary stress for me. Anyway.
Because I mean, truly, I believe that both sides, Republican and Democrat, they all, it's everyone has their hands in their pockets with some big money, whatever. So anyway, that's not the point of this podcast. I digress. Yes. But okay, so another thing, another ingredient, tricyclazane. It's an ingredient that is in antibacterial soaps and in lots of toothpaste. So not only do you need to check your toothpaste for fluoride, the lack of it, but try. I can't talk now.
Check your toothpaste.
Try. I can't say it now. Y'all got me. Y'all are terrible.
Okay.
So for instance, I use the brand Jason toothpaste. That one of the brands that I buy from Thrive Market. It's an all natural brand that doesn't have crap that's gonna poison me. Mercury is another endocrine disruptor that can suppress the thyroid. Of course, a lot of people think of fish, and are you familiar with the fish that you need to be aware of that have the highest cause of mercury?
I just think of sushi, because that's like you said, people are always like, oh, don't eat sushi, it has mercury and it's bad for you. So.
Yeah, it depends on the fish, and because one of my favorite kinds of fish, tuna. Love me some tuna. Usually tuna has a high
Really? Dang it.
I know. Even wild caught, because
really,
even because when you eat fish, you need to be eating wild caught fish instead of
Yes.
conventionally farm raised fish.
Yes.
Dude, all you got to do is watch a documentary on tilapia and you'll never
Ew.
have tilapia again. Like
No.
it's gross. Like
Ugh.
gross.
It's
Because
a bottom feeding way, and what you eat is what your food eats is what you eat, and it's pretty nasty.
Yes, exactly. But I was sad to see that tuna is on there. And then also another one of my favorite fish is Chilean sea bass.
What? No.
I know.
You're ruining my day right now.
I know. So there are definitely some fish.
Wow,
obviously you need to be eating wild fish, but
Boo.
that have lower concentrations of mercury found. And does that mean that you can never eat tuna or I mean, I literally had Chilean sea bass on Mother's Day with my mom at the Cannery, which is an amazing restaurant in Newport Beach that I highly recommend. But just be aware of it. Another thing that you need to be aware of is fillings. So if you have any dental fillings.
Yeah, if you have amalgam filling, you need to get it replaced.
Look at you. Oh, but you used to be
But I was in the dental field don't be too impressed.
You totally just impressed me there. Like, oh, wait.
Well, I should have just let you be impressed.
Right?
Anything. No, I was in the dental field for 5 or 6 years before fitness. So if you have amalgam filling, which is a metal filling, you have to get them replaced.
Yeah, but you also have to be careful about getting them replaced.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a dentist that isn't in tune with how important that process is.
Yes.
So if you have metal fillings in your mouth, they are slowly seeping into your body, and so it's a slow, so you don't have immediate symptoms. But when you get the dental fillings taken out by just a typical dentist, you can have like immediate like toxic side effects from like a spike in your mercury and all sorts of like you can feel like you're paralyzed essentially because it's a neurotoxin. Not good. So if you are someone that's listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I've got a teeth full of metal, what I would recommend is that you research and find a biological dentist, because the biological dentists are the ones that are in tune with, okay, what this filling has the potential of doing to your body, and are very methodical in the way that they take those fillings out. Hey guys, it's Lauren Fitz here. So like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I had a feeling that Talking McTalkerson here was going to talk a little bit longer than the hour-ish that I like for our podcast episodes to be. So this is the end of part 1. We appreciate you listening to this first half. The second half will be released next week, and please stay tuned for it. There's so much good info that gives you the potential power to change your life. Hope you have a Fitz and Healthy day. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review, and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a Fitz and Healthy life.